Welcome to Evolving Into Her. I'm Ashley Hope, and this is your weekly check-in to get out of your head, into your body, and back into alignment with the version of you who's already living the vision. So grab your favorite cup of tea, settle in, and let's get into the show. Hey friends, welcome back to Evolving Into Her. I'm your host, Ashley Hope. Thank you for being here for yet another week, another episode. If you're new here, welcome. There are a lot of you who are new here. Welcome to the fam. We're so happy to have you. Evolving Into Her is where we talk about building a life that actually feels good to live, not just one that looks good on the outside, not just one that looks good on paper. We are here for the real work, the self-concept shifts, the nervous system healing, the identity transformation that can change your entire reality for the better. Around here, we're all about rewiring your mind, regulating your body, and becoming the woman who's already living the vision. That's the framework. Rewire, regulate, become. And before we get into today's topic, if you've been finding value in these conversations, I'd be so grateful for a review on Apple Podcasts or a rating on Spotify. Every single one helps someone else find exactly what they need at the right time. So today we're continuing the Get Out of Your Own Way series. If you haven't caught parts 1 through 4 yet, I'll link them in the show notes. This entire series is about identifying the ways we block our own blessings, the subtle patterns that feel like protection, but are actually just holding us back from who we're becoming. So we're getting out of our own way and thus getting out of God's way so he can work through us. And today we're talking about the trap of the false identity, the version of yourself you've been believing is the real you, when really it's just a story you learned to survive. So, friend, grab something you can sip slow, get comfortable, and let's get into the show. Okay, so let's talk about false identity. And I'm not talking about someone pretending to be someone they're not, although that's a false identity too. I'm talking about the identity you genuinely believe is you, but it's actually just a collection of stories, it's survival patterns, it's old programming, things that you've mistaken for truth. It's, I'm the strong one. I'm not the creative type. I'm the person who handles everything. I'm just too anxious. If I don't do it, no one will. These are deeper than just thoughts. For a lot of us, they feel like facts, like core truths of who you are. But friend, they are not. They are false identity, likely one you've built to survive. And here's where the trap comes in. The false identity that once protected you can start to feel like a cage. The version of yourself you built to survive starts to suffocate the woman you're trying to become. And because this false identity runs so deep, it becomes automatic. It becomes second nature. It influences every decision you make, every relationship you enter, every opportunity you pursue or avoid. And your brain is designed to keep that false identity intact. So if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you're already hip to this. But for those who are new here, there's something called your reticular activating system, or your RAS. And think of it as your brain's filter that finds evidence for whatever you believe about yourself. Okay. So if your false identity is, I'm the strong one, your brain will literally start to scan your reality looking for proof. Every time someone needs you, every crisis you handled, every moment you held it together. And it'll dismiss everything that contradicts that false identity. The times you need support, the moments you need to be held, the moments someone tried to help you, the opportunities to be soft, to receive, to let someone else carry you. Your brain creates evidence for the false identity you're operating from. And over time, it stops feeling false. It just feels like who you are. It feels like who you be. It feels like your truth. But hear me when I say this. It is not who you are, okay? It's who you learn to be. And we don't just carry these false identities. We become attached to them. We build our entire sense of self around them. And Brianna Weiss, I think that's how you pronounce her last name, she talks about this in The Mountain Is You. Really great book if you haven't read it yet. We actually attach our identity to our struggles, to our pain, to what's hard for us. Because when a false identity becomes who you think you are, letting it go feels like losing yourself. So if you've been the strong one for 20 years, who are you if you finally let yourself be soft? If your false identity is the person who fixes everything, Bob the builder, Bobisha the builder, what's your role if you stop managing everyone else's problem? So even though that false identity is exhausting and it's limiting, it's familiar, and your nervous system will always choose familiar over the unknown, even when the familiar is draining the life out of you. And y'all know in this podcast, I speak from an embodied place, right? A lot of the things I share are what I've experienced. And I know about the false identity intimately because I lived from it for most of my life. So, the identity of being the strong one, that false identity had a very specific origin point, and I remember it like it was yesterday. We were at my grandma's house. I was 6 years old. My family, this was aunties, uncles, grandparents, they gathered me and my two brothers in this back room of my grandma's house. My older brother was 9. My younger brother, who's no longer with us, rest in heaven, he was 4 going on 5. And my auntie came in. She's also my mother's identical twin. She came in the room and told us our mother went to heaven. And I already knew somehow. I don't know how, but I did. And I watched my older brother process it in real time. And he was like, "She died?" He's trying to wrap his mind around that. And then I watched him break down crying. And my aunties and uncles, they held him while he grieved. And I remember making a choice in that moment. I choked back my own tears. One, because I didn't want them to see me cry in that moment. Another reason was because I decided I needed to be strong for my little brother. I was 6 years old. And to this day, I don't know where I learned that from. I don't have a memory of seeing my mother cry in the dark or stifle her tears. I can't really recall witnessing someone else do this. I have no idea what made me swallow my grief in that moment, but I did. I held my face still. I pretended I didn't know what was happening. My auntie even said, "Oh, Hope doesn't understand." But I understood. I understood perfectly. And I waited. I waited until everyone was asleep that night. I remember sleeping in the kitchen on a cot with that same auntie who was my mother's twin. The house was packed at that time. I later came to find that it was the same weekend as my mother's funeral, so all the family was there. And I waited until that night in the dark to finally let myself cry. And that moment was the moment my false identity was born. The story that my pain happens in private, that being strong means holding it together for everyone else, that my job is to carry what other people can't. And here's what makes this even more profound. So, from birth to about age 7, your brain operates primarily in what's called a theta brainwave state. And it's essentially a hypnotic state. There's no critical filter, no ability to question what you're experiencing. Your subconscious mind is wide open and it's absorbing everything as truth. So that moment at 6 years old, it didn't just create a thought, it created programming, deep subconscious programming that my brain accepted as absolute truth about who I needed to be to survive. And that false identity, the one I inadvertently created at 6 years old, it shaped the next 2 decades of my life. I became the strong one. I became the fixer. I was the eldest daughter who functioned as the second parent, the one you could count on to handle whatever came up, the person who never broke down, who never asked for help, who never let anyone see her struggle. And because I'm the strong one wasn't just something I did, it became my false identity. It was me. It was how I defined myself, the version of me I believed was real. And if I wasn't that, if I wasn't the strong one, who was I? And here's what made it so persistent. I wasn't just believing this false identity, I was living proof of it. Every time someone needed me, I showed up. Every time something fell apart, I held it together. My brain found evidence everywhere. And because I believed the false identity so deeply, I created a life that validated it. That's how false identities work. They shape the reality that we create. If your false identity says you have to be strong all the time, guess what? You'll never let anyone help you. You'll never let anyone be there for you. If it says you're not creative, you'll never try. If it's built around struggle, you'll sabotage good things when they come. What you believe about yourself, the identity you're operating from, this determines what you allow, what you pursue, what you tolerate, what you walk away from. And when that identity is false, when it's keeping you small, when it's blocking what God is trying to give you, you have to decide, do I keep this false identity or do I step into my true one? And I didn't start releasing or letting go or rewiring that false identity until my late 20s. And for me, shedding that false identity required years of inner child work. And we're going to go deeper into this in future episodes, but I want to touch on it here. I've spent years healing that 6-year-old, the one who inadvertently created the false identity of the strong one because her brain was in that theta state, absorbing everything as truth. And I'm going to be honest, the healing took years. Years of learning to receive, years of practicing asking for help, years of allowing people to actually show up for me. I let myself cry freely now. Actually, I love to cry. I find it so cleansing. I feel like it's your body and your spirit releasing. I encourage everyone to cry. I don't hold back my tears anymore. I don't wait till I'm alone in the dark. I let myself release in real time. I've learned to be more transparent, to be more vulnerable. Many of you know me because I've openly shared my story, my testimony, the lessons I've learned over the years. That's not the 6-year-old who hid her grief. That's the woman who learned that there's strength in softness. I did the work to lean into my feminine energy, to receive instead of always giving, to be soft instead of always hard, to rest instead of always moving. I let myself be held instead of always holding everyone else. And that little girl who created that false identity to survive, she gets to rest now. She gets to play. She gets to actually be a child. She gets to do kid things. She doesn't have to manage everyone else's emotions. She gets to just be. And here's what I want you to know and to remember. This work doesn't have to be heavy all the time. It could be gentle. It could be playful. It could even be enjoyable sometimes. So releasing a false identity doesn't have to look like suffering. You can move through it with grace. Okay, so I want to pause right here. If you're listening to this and you're realizing that you've been operating from a false identity, I want you to just pause with me. Close your eyes if you can and take a deep breath in through your nose. Let your belly expand. Let your chest fill. Hold at the top for a second. And as you exhale through your mouth, imagine releasing that false identity just for this moment. Good. And breathe in again. A nice cleansing breath. Expand your belly, expand your diaphragm. Hold at the top and breathe out. Good. Now I want you to ask yourself, what would it feel like to step into your true identity? What might open up if you gave yourself permission to be who God actually created you to be? And just notice what comes up. No judgment, just awareness. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So proud of you for sticking with me, friend. All right, so let's get practical. Grab your notebook, open your notes folder, and let's take notes. Here's how to start shedding the false identity. Number one, I want you to name it. What identity have you been living from? Maybe it's I'm not creative. Maybe it's I'm the anxious one. Maybe it's I'm everyone else's support system. Whatever it is, just name it, write it down, bring that false identity into the light. Remember, I always say awareness is a beautiful gift. Awareness is healing. Second, find the origin if you can in a safe space. When was this false identity born? Was it ever actually true? Or was it just the best way you knew how to survive that moment? And third, distinguish between the false identity and the true one. So for every false identity statement, ask, what does God say about me instead? So since we now know that our brain has been finding evidence for the false identity, now we have to train it to look for evidence of the true identity. And fourth, practice living from your true identity. So instead of the I am the strong one, try I'm learning to let myself be held. I'm learning to let myself receive. And with this, we're not forcing a new identity. We're just giving ourselves permission to shed the false one and grow into the true one. So this week, just notice the false identity and ask yourself, is this helping me become who I'm meant to be? Or is it keeping me stuck in who I learned to be just to survive? Because, friend, you're not that 6-year-old anymore. You're not that 13-year-old. You're not that 21-year-old. You're not even who you were last year. You're not meant to stay stuck in that false identity you built to survive. As of today, you're being invited into your true identity, the one that's been waiting for you all along. The version of you who's already free. She's already whole. She's already loved. She's already more than enough. She's just waiting for you to stop believing the false identity and step into the truth of who you were created to be. All right, friends, we made it to the end. That's all I have for you today. If this one resonated, go back and listen to parts 1 through 4 of the Get Out of Your Own Way series. I'll link them in the show notes. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss next week's episode. We're talking about the trap of your comfort zone. That is going to be a good one. I have been there. And we're going to chat about how clinging to what feels safe is actually keeping you stuck, and why your nervous system fights the very expansion that you're praying for. It's going to be a good one. Friend, be gentle with yourself this week. Give yourself permission to question the false identity. Give yourself grace as you step into your true identity. You don't have to stay stuck in a version of yourself that was only ever meant to help you survive. You get to shed it. You get to release it. You get to let it go. You get to become who you really are. I'm Ashley Hope, and until next time, stay in devotion to your becoming. I'll see you next week. I'm Ashley Hope, and you've been listening to Evolving into Her. Thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you for choosing her, for choosing yourself. And until next time, stay in devotion to your becoming.